Hi everyone, this is Raj. Welcome to TechFerment. And in this previous video, we have talked about the backend fundamentals, like how we can use the APIs and what is the JavaScript and how is JavaScript is different to the Node.js. So like we have covered the topic uh, like if you have a JavaScript code initially, so you have to run your JavaScript code in your HTML document, and each browser has their specific JavaScript engine which will be responsible for running your JavaScript code. And after some time, a developer took your JavaScript engine, specifically Chrome V8 engine, outside the browser and then created a virtual environment, and this virtual environment with the help of C++ is called as Node.js. So Node.js is a runtime environment for running your JavaScript code for without browser. So now I'll talk about how we can use JavaScript in Node.js. So first I have opened VS Code editor in my computer, and then we have opened a folder name is JavaScript. So I'll create a file, let's say app.js. This is a JavaScript file. So here we can write console.log for printing the some content. So here we can write, let's say hello, and I want to open this file, so I'll just go to the directory and then we have a JavaScript and I will open this directory, and this will give you the error like how I cannot open this JavaScript file without browser. So what I do in traditional earlier, like as a front-end development, so we have to create a file, let's say index.html, and this is JavaScript HTML basic logic, and we will link this JavaScript file with the help of script src tag, and then we will open index.html file, and then we'll go to the inspect element, and then in the console we can see hello. But right now we are working on Node.js, so like you can remove this file, so I'll remove this file, and now we have app.js file. So how you can run your file, JavaScript file, with the help of Node.js. So I have already installed Node.js in my system. If you haven't installed Node.js in your system, you can go to the website nodejs.org, and then there is a LTS version you can download in your system. After installing Node.js, you just need to go to the terminal. So this is my terminal, and I'll run this file node app.js. So here we have already installed Node, and then here we'll write app.js, and this will give you the output hello. Okay, so this is how we can run a JavaScript code without browser with the help of Node.js. So now I'll talk about the basic fundamental about JavaScript. Like we can create a variable with the help of let as a keyword, and then variable name is, let's say 34, or a as a variable name, and the value is 23. So we can print the variable with the help of console.log. Here we can pass the value. So I'll save and I will run this page. So here we can get the output. And similarly, you can create a string type of variables. It's totally up to you. You just need to use let as a keyword. So here you can define the variable name is TechFerment, and here you can paint the values. I'll write console.log, then we have a name. So I'll save and I will run this file. Again, we are getting the data 23 TechFerment. Okay. So it's totally up to you how you can like you can create a boolean type of variable. You can create double type of variables. Is totally up to you. And there is another things, like if you want to create a constant, so we have to use const as a variable name, and here you can define b is equal to, let's say 34. So b is a constant, so we cannot change the value of b after assigning. So let's say I want to assign b is equal to 45, so it will give you the error because b is a constant. Okay, so if you want to create a constant in JavaScript, you need to use const as a keyword in JavaScript. Okay, so now I'll show you how we can use arithmetic operations. So I'll create a two variables. So let's say a is equal to, let's say 2, let b is equal to 3. Okay, and in JavaScript there is an optional thing, like you can use semicolon. It's totally up to you. I'll not use any semicolon in the JavaScript code. It's totally up to you. So here we can write console.log, and here you can print arithmetic operations like a plus b, a minus b, a device, and this thing you can do that. So here we'll write multiplication, and this one is for the division. So I'll save and then I'll run, and then we have a data. Okay, So this is a basic fundamental of JavaScript, like arithmetic operations. And similarly, for example, let's say I'll create a variable a is equal to true, and let b is equal to false. So I'll show you how we can perform logical operations. So first one is AND logic. So I'll write console.log, and here we have a and b. So like true and false is equal to true and false is equal to false. So here we have a false. So this is how we can implement AND logic. And if you want to implement OR logic, so you need to use console.log, and here you can pass a or b. Okay, so I'll save and run, and this will give you the true. Okay, for the AND. Now I'll talk about conditional statement in JavaScript. So how we can use conditional statements. Let's say I'll define a variable a is equal to 34. So how we can use conditional statement, like we have a if, and then we have a section. So if a is equal to 34, and then here we can print the variable or value, like let's say here we have yes, or if else console.log, and then we can print no. So I will save, and then I will run this logic. So here this will give you the yes, because we have a is equal to 34. If I change the value, and this will give you the no. Next thing, like similarly, if you want to use this logic, or you can use question mark, like a is equal to 34 question mark, and what would be the true conditions, like console.log, here we can print yes, else console.log, and here you can print no. Okay, so like this is a question mark operator, conditional operators. Like for example, this particular condition is true, so this will logic will execute. Otherwise, after colon, if this will return false, so after colon this will execute. So I will save, and this will give you the same result. I will save and then run this one, and this will give you the result no. Okay, now the next thing, like how we can create an array. So if you want to create an array, so I'll create let array is equal to, for creating array you need to use square bracket, and here you can pass the value, let's say 34, 25, 45. It's totally up to you how you can add the value. And we can print the array with the help of console.log array name. So I will save and then reload, run the page, and we have array. So if you want to access the specific element, you just need to use index. So here in the square bracket you need to pass the index. So let's say I want to print 23. So 23 index is 0, 1, 2. So here we need to pass 2, and this will give you the index, and then we'll get 23 as a result. Okay, now I'll show you how we can perform some actions in array. Like first we will print the array here with the array. And if you want to add some add data, like add data or element in add end, so you need to use array dot push method, and inside you need to pass the value. Let's say I want to add 111, and we'll print console.log, and then we'll print array. So initially array is this one after pushing the element in the last index, and then we will get the output as this one. Okay, and there is a one more method you can use, like this one is for add. And if you want to remove the element, like remove element from last index, okay, so you need to use add.pop. Okay, so this is pop method, and this will remove 12. So I'll save and then reload the page, and then 12 is removed. And there are a lot of things, like you can go to the documentation of JavaScript, or you can prefer w3school.com, where you can get the documentation about array operations. Or you can, if you want to add element from starting, so add element at begin index. So here you can use array dot unshift method, and here you can pass the value. So let's say I'll add 111 in the beginner. So here we have array. So there are a lot of things. You just go to the documentation how we can perform the action in array. Now I'll show you how we can use the loop. So like in the normal programming language, we have a for loop. So here similarly you can apply for loop. So we have a for loop, and first we have to initialize the variable. So let's say I is equal to 0, I less than array length. So here we have a array dot length, and then we need to increment the value of I, and here we have a data. Okay, and now we are not working on int, so here we have let as a keyword. So here we have a let where we can define a variable. So now I'll write console.log, and then we have array of I, and this will give you the array result one by one. Okay, so this is how we can use array, and we can perform the actions. And one more things, now I'll show you how we can create objects. So if you want to create objects in JavaScript, you just need to use let as a keyword and then object name. So let's say my object name is this one, and for defining an object you need to use curly braces, and here you can pass uh, the property. So let's say my property name is this one, name, and then we have a value, and you can connect the property name and value with the help of colon symbol and TechFerment. And let's say I'll add another property, so you can pass another property. You just need to use comma symbol and then property name, property value. So property value is https //techferment.com. Okay, so this is the thing how we can create an object, and we can print the object with the help of console.log, and here we'll write obj.directly object, and then we'll run JavaScript file. Okay, so we have an object. Okay, so if you want to access the object name, so like there is a property name, so how you can do that? Here you need to write object.name. Okay, so this will give you the object name. So here we have object name is object of name as a property, TechFerment. And similarly there is another way you can do that. So here we have an object, and then here you use a square bracket, and then here you can pass the value. So there's another way you can do that, so I'll call, and both are same. So this is how we can create objects in JavaScript. And one more thing, like you can create an array of objects, like let's say I'll create a persons as a array, and inside we have objects like a person 1 data, person 2 data, person 3 data. You can do that. Now I'll show you how we can create a functions in JavaScript. So if you want to create a functions in JavaScript, you just need to use function as a keyword, and then here you need to define function name. So I'll define function name is greeting, and then that will be the definition. So here we'll write console.log, and then here we can write hello, and we can call the functions. You just need to use functions name and then small brackets, and that's it. So this is my function, and we can call this function, so node help greeting, and then this will give you the data. So one of the best thing about functions is you can call function multiple times, and this will give you the data 3 times, hello. Okay, and you can pass the value. So I'll create another functions, let's say print data. This is my function name, which will take x as a parameter, and you can print the parameter console.log, and here is x. So this is a function name, so I'll just call this function name here. I will remove this one, and let's say I'll pass 45 here. So this will give you the 45. Okay, so I'm calling this function for getting print the data. So I'll create another function for some related things, like which will sum of two things like x and y, and then here we'll write console.log, and then here we'll show x plus y. Okay, so we have a sum function, so I'll call this function. I will pass two parameter 4 and 5, and I will call, and this will give you the sum of this particular things. Okay, so this is the ordinary way, like normal if you are working on a JavaScript. So you can create a functions with the help of function keyword, and then you need to use function as a key. Like here we have a function name, small bracket, and then you can pass the parameter, and then curly braces you can define the property or definition about the functions. But now we have a ECMAScript, like the standard of new standard for the JavaScript. Like you can create a functions in the new way. Like if you want to create a function in JavaScript, so first you need to define the function name. Let's say my function name is greeting. Okay, so this is my function name. equal to, and what will be the parameter. So I'm not passing any parameters, so you just need to use blank as a thing, and then we need to define arrow, and then here we have a definition console.log. Here you can pass the value. So let's say here we have a arrow. So this is an example for arrow functions in ECMAScript. So in the bootcamp, like in the backend development bootcamp, so I'll create arrow functions in this way, like let, or you can use const. This will be the function name, and here will be parameter. So I'll not passing any parameters. I'll write small brackets, and then we have an arrow, and then we have a definitions. So I'll call this function. So how we can call this function? We have a function name, greeting, and then that's it. So I'll call this function, and this will give you the hello. So one of the best thing about arrow functions is, like, if you are logic in one line, so you can remove this one and this one. So this is simplest. So similarly, you can create another function. So let's say I'll create another function, says print data. So here we'll write print data, and which will take parameter as a x, and you will print console.log x. Okay, so I'll call print data as a function, and here we will pass the value, let's say 89, and here we can run, and we are getting the value. And similarly, you can create another functions. Let's say this will function's name is sum, and then here you can pass two things like x comma y, and which will result x comma y, x plus y. So you can call this function. So you need to use function, and here you can pass a comma. So you have to pass two parameter. Okay, so this is like basic fundamental of JavaScript. And I'll show you another thing, like there is a one more concept in JavaScript, which is called as promises. So what is a promises in JavaScript? Promises is just like as a real life promises. Like if I'll give you the promise about providing a course material on YouTube, so like there will be a two result. Either this promise is success, or this promise is not able to complete. Success means resolve, or it not complete means reject. So similarly in JavaScript, we can create a promise. So let's say I'll create a promise. So my promise name is P, and how we can create a promise? So we have a use promise new as a this. Okay. Now here we need to pass the function, which will take two things, like either the promise will resolve or it will reject. So here we'll write reject. Okay. So and then we have a function definition. Okay, so now we are working on edit ordinary functions, so we can go for arrow functions. I'll remove function, and then here we have arrow functions. Okay, so let's define some expressions. A x a is equal to a plus 1, or 1 plus 1. Okay, so if a is equal to true, this will true, and then if this particular expression is successfully completed or true, it will return true. So we need to resolve this promise. So how we can resolve this promise? Here we can use resolve as a method, and then here we can pass the message success, and else here we can reject the promise. So here we can pass fail as a promise. Now we have created a simple promise in JavaScript. We need to call this promise. So how we can call this promise? This is my promise name. So now this promise have a two result. Either this particular promise is reject or reject. So if by default, generally if this promise is resolved, so how for promise is resolved, you need to handle with the help of then block, and in the then we are getting a resolve, you are getting this particular message. So here we are getting this message, and here we will print this particular message console.log, and then we have a message. Okay, so if this particular promise is failed means reject. So how you can handle with the help of reject? So you need to use catch block, and here we can get the error. So error is a e, and e is a print here console.log, and here we have e. So I will save and I will run this logic, and this will give you the success. Just because of the success, because this expression is always true. So I'll add, let's say a is equal to 3, and I will call at the promise again. This will promise is failed. So this is a syntax like how we can implement the promises in JavaScript. And there is another way you can create a promises, or you can implement the promises with the help of try and catch block. You can do that. So let's implement how we can implement the JavaScript promises with the help of async await and try catch. So I have created these promises. What I'll do, I'll create a function. So here I'll create a normal function. So let's say my normal function is show data. Okay, inside this function, this will return a JavaScript promises. So what I'll do, I'll just cut this logic, and this will return JavaScript promise. Okay, now we can use this way, or you can create async await. So what I'll do here, will call the function. So function is get data. Okay, and here we need to use async as a method, async. And then here we have a function definition. Here you need to use await, then show data, and inside show data. Okay, so if let's say I'll pass the variable x, and here we have a x. Okay, so if I'll pass 1, or let's say if I'll pass 2, if this particular promise is success means resolve, and this will give you the data. So here we have a response. Okay, so here we are getting a response. And how we can handle the error? So first we need to handle with the error with the help of try and catch block. So we have a try and catch block, and we can pass this thing here. And if you are getting any issues, like if this promise is resolved, it will be handled in the help catch try block. Or if it is reject, so we can handle the promise in the reject catch block. So we have a catch block. Here we can pass console.log error. Okay, now we will print console.log res. Okay, so this is how we can implement the JavaScript promises with the help of async await and try catch. So I'll call this functions, I'll save, and then we'll call this function. This will give you the success because I'm passing 2, and this 2 1 plus 2 is equal to 3, and this will resolve, and resolve will work in the try block. And if there is any issues, like if it is not resolved, so we can do that here. Okay, now there is a one more concept in JavaScript which is called as modules. So modules with JavaScript module is one of the best thing about JavaScript. Like you can break down your JavaScript code into smaller modules. So let's say I'll create a modules. I'll created a folder modules. Inside there is a module, let's say arithmetic module, arith.js, and here we can create a function. So let's say I'll create a functions, arrow functions, which will take two things like x comma y, and this will give you the result console.log x plus y. And we will similarly create four functions, like this one is for division. Here we'll write div, and this one is for the multiplication. So here we'll write mu, and then we have a multiplication, and then we have a subtraction. So here okay, so we have created four functions. I just need to use these four functions in this app.js file. So we need to create this particular module. So how we can create a module? So here we need to use module dot export. Okay, so this is a syntax, module dot export, and then we need to export as an object. So here we can pass the value, like this is a function name. So I'm passing another functions. See, here we have a function, another function is multiplication, another function is division. Okay, so this is the JavaScript modules. I'll import this module in app.js file. So how we can import this module? So first write const, and then we'll write arith module is equal to required as a keyword. So I'll write req yeah, so require required as a keyword. Here you can pass the value, let's say dot slash modules inside we have arithmetic module. So I'll print this arith module. So I'll use console.log, and then we have arith module. Okay, and this will give you this particular object, this object having these function. Okay, so I'll save and I'll run this file and having this particular JavaScript object and these object having these functions. So for example, if I want to call the function's name is sum, so I'll use arithmetic module dot sum, and here we can pass the value. Let's say I'll pass the value x let's say 4 comma 5, and this will give you the sum of 4 and 5 equal to 9. Or if you want to call same thing like my subtractions, like here we can pass sub and here we have a value, and this will give you the result like 9. Or you can comment this logic, and this one is for the subtractions. So this is how we can create a JavaScript modules. Like if you want to create any module, so you create a separate JavaScript file, define the functions, and then in the end you need to write module.export, and then inside you need to pass a JavaScript object and the function's name. And then if you want to import the module, so like you can import the module in this way: const module name required and this one. So this is all about JavaScript, and we will use these concepts in the next videos and in the bootcamp. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.